Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Tectonic Takes. I'm here with Baby Leo, and I'm here with Baby Leo, and I want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you so much for taking the time to sponsor us and go ahead and take the time to really, fund us, because without you guys, we are nothing. And Baby Leo here is infatuated with his mama, but I want to also thank the Beautiful Game Network. Thank you so much for everything you guys do for us and making it so that we can publish this podcast for everybody, as well as Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. Later in the show, I go ahead and say, if you want me to display your art, if you're a Quakes fan and you have art or any articles that you want to write, please let me know, because I would gladly display our art. Our biggest goal out of all this is to make the community bigger, for the next generation. If Leo wants to take the mantle at Tectonic Takes one day, it's going to happen. But we would love to display anything that you guys have that's Quakes content, because at the end of the day, this is all collective, and we go ahead and wish that all of this brings more content to us. So thank you so much. And if you want to be a part of our Patreon, the links are below. We do appreciate it. We use all that money to go back into making more Quakes content for you guys. So thank you so much. Cheers. And Leo, say bye. Go Quakes. Bye, 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 bye. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tectonic Takes. I'm here with someone you guys all know. I mean, he's very dear to me, good friend of mine. What's up, Dom? Welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Yo, what is up, man? Thank you for having me back. I know it's been a minute. Always cool to connect with you too as well. I know you're over there in Japan, so it's always a treat for us to go ahead and get on an episode together.
Yeah, I mean, all the fans appreciate it too, man, especially when we can get a crossover. I mean, what is this, like Naruto and One Piece right here? No, it's like, this crossover everybody's wanted. But yeah,
I would say I got to be on the Naruto side, because I'm not a One Piece fan at all. So the One Piece fans out there, loopy in my mind.
You and Daryl DK haven't even watched One Piece at all, So, but
there's like 30,000 episodes. What am I supposed to do?
It's crazy out here. It's actually hella popular. Like, you see kids walk into school with like a One Piece backpack, and you're like, oh my god, like that goes past me. Like that's some crazy stuff.
They're in that I love that we're talking about anime right now and manga. They're in that segment where Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z had to hand over the keys to a new generation, and that new generation were the shows that all started within that same time, and those mangas that started in shonen in that same time. And it was One Piece, it was Naruto, and it was Bleach. And so, I rolled with Naruto and Bleach when I was in like 7th grade. My buddies would go over to the Philippines, they come back with all the manga, and we'd be like, yo, let's read this. And then when the anime came, we were like, yo, let's watch this sub. So back when we had like Date Bio being like our only source of translated anime on the internet, and I just was not gonna sit there and watch One Piece, man. Right. but I respect it, so I went with the other two on that list. But yeah, it's no surprise to me at all that One Piece is super popular out there, because it is in that holy trinity of popular manga / anime from shonen. So
well, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's actually, I don't want to say it, but the way I've seen it, I think it's bigger than Dragon Ball, and that's the craziest thing to me.
That's fair.
Right. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because it's still relevant, but Dragon Ball's huge in Latin America. I know that Dragon Ball's one in South America, number one. When my wife has Peruvian family, and they like Dragon Ball, so we send them things like Dragon Ball. But Demon Slayer looks like it's gonna be the king out here. I mean, out here Demon Slayer is already the king, but probably the next years is gonna be that.
See, I think I think with One Piece, just to go to your point, is it's been never ending on the manga side, which means it's been never ending on the anime side. So it's like gone through the generations of like fandom, right? Like I'm 31, right? Yeah. So I imagine that most One Piece fans are like in their 30s, right? And then they've had kids that are now One Piece fans, right? Or like younger siblings and stuff that are also One Piece fans, right? Whereas like Bleach died out like a couple of years ago, making a comeback now, where Dragon Ball had a break too as well, now making a comeback and pushing forward. where One Piece has just been like, I am everlasting. I'm going to keep going, which is one of those things. But I totally agree with you. It may very well probably be more popular than Dragon Ball, and I don't think that most people are going to disagree with you. And then with Demon Slayer, that is a classic like Cowboy Bebop, Wolf's Rain, like one-off series that I just absolutely love, where like it gets so popular and has this like cult following that you want more of it, but then the writer is just like, I'm done, like I'm finished.
Right.
Like this is what you get, and so you're just like, please more, please. Like, no, I'm done. Like this is it. Like
Demon
I
Slayer
love it.
has a place in Japanese history now because it passed up Studio Ghibli for the most profitable movie in Japan. So it's always gonna be around,
and outside too as well.
So it's definitely crazy. And just even I gotta say this about One Piece. I gotta say one more thing. It's so dated that the characters are still risque and they get away with it, right? So it's like, holy, you walk past like the store in Japan, you're like, geez, man, that's like what
you're like, what's going on here?
So it's just it's like,
I love it.
It's like, okay, like, all right, well, it's grandfathered in because it's from that time.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny. All right, well,
I totally feel you.
Yeah, let's go into a little bit of soccer here. I mean, I know we could. Let's do it. Our anime podcast,
I know, right? Basically, right? Just go back and forth with anime. That'd be hilarious.
But we have something positive to talk about. We have a win. We finally have a win for this San Jose Earthquakes team that hasn't lost in 10 games now. So this is actually astronomical from this team. I mean, the purple sweater is back in action and it's working. The purple super system is working, right? Dom, what do you think? First thoughts about the game? What do you think?
So the thing that I was most interested in is how the Quakes were going to use their past results to really fuel them for this matchup, right? And so, we talk about being unbeaten in 9 or 10 now in this situation. And coming into this match, it wasn't as if we had a string of wins. It was like, maybe a win here, some draws. We were getting points. And that's really was the most consistent thing about it at the end of the day. We were just getting points, which I loved. I absolutely loved. And that was where I wanted the team to go ahead and be and make an improvement off of, even last season. It should just be in the position to at least just get 1 point out of games and put yourself in that conversation for playoffs or a team that just needed one more piece to be more deadly, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of where we ended up at the end of the day, right? We bring in Nathan, the defense gets completely shored up. You get on that streak, and then you go and make another move and bringing in a Bobasi, and now you've got somebody that can come into the Clasico and score a goal for you when you needed goals.
Right.
And boom, here we are with that W, right?
Right.
So for me, it's kind of just been like, that peak to the buildup that we've seen over this previous weeks of how is this team going to improve? What is Matias going to change? How is he going to adapt?
Right.
In terms of formation, we've seen a couple of different formations. Adapt in terms of the man marking system being a bit more zonal as well and covering some spaces. And if that was all going to come together to really get us to the point where we can go ahead and say, all right, we've racked up these points in terms of draws. Now let's go ahead and get those W's, right?
Right.
So that's what this game meant to me. It was taking that step forward to move on from draws, to say that we can get these W's against top teams in the West.
Right.
I did the air quotes because it's Carson. I never want to give them credit for being a quote unquote top team at the end of the day, even though they sit in fourth place, and it is what it is. But we got that W against a squad that we really needed to beat out to go ahead and say, watch out for us as we move forward with the rest of the season and we start talking about playoffs. That's really how I feel about it at the end of the day.
I have a whole bunch of comments to go off of what you said. The first, the resurgence, or not the resurgence, but the start of this Tanner Beeson era is insane. Having Osvaldo Alanis being your third best center back is an insane thing to think about.
You know what?
And that's he's great, but he's our third best. And that's something that some, MLS teams would love to have Osvaldo Alanis starting every single game for them. And we have him on the bench and coming in when we need him to come in. So it's just, it's a luxury that we didn't think we were going to have at the start of the season, because Nathan coming in just completely changed the complexity of this team.
Yes, most definitely. And I think third. I think it's actually really interesting that you say third best because I'm probably on the team of Tanner being the third best
Okay.
and Alanis being number two. And only this is the only reason why. Alanis has shown us over time that he can do this, that he can be that linchpin, someone to build around for the Quakes in that role, right? In the defense. Where that if he's in, that we are going to be at least okay, right?
Yeah.
I think the wild card was always who was going to be next to him, and that's why I don't have him as third. But I will give Tanner Beeson his props 100%.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm on that other side and being like, oh, I can definitely see you saying Tanner Beeson being the second best center back because he's been that good.
Right.
He's come in to really find his own form. He gives something that the other center backs do not, which is that blocking ability that folks have talked about for weeks now, even in last season, in terms of how important that is in today's modern game and the benefits of it on the defending side. But he's also just really smart in the decisions that he makes at times. His positioning for me is what I always take a look at whenever he is in. He does make some mistakes. I've called out a few, but for the most part, I now feel really comfortable with Beeson being in. And so now you have this situation where like a lot of folks are going to go ahead and say, well, how are you going to call Nathan number one if Alanis is the one that's been there beforehand? And really it's the impact factor, right?
Yeah.
It's the fact that when Nathan came in, things really got shored up in the defense, right? I think Alanis deserves more credit than what I'm giving him by saying that he's number two because of the consistency over time. But when I look at the impact, and I look at how much the defense has evolved as a result, I really have to put Nathan up there right now as my current number one on for center back. And I think that Matias also kind of feels this way too as well, because we've seen him use a 3-4-3 and 3 in the back, and we've also seen him go to 4 in the back too as well. And his decision wasn't based off of is Marcos Lopez playing up to speed, and who am I going to go ahead and rotate opposite of him, as much as it's been, do I want Beeson, Alanis, and Nathan inside there? Because I can send Beeson out to go ahead and mark somebody out of a match, and then Nathan and Alanis will go ahead and take care of everything else, right? So I really think that all three have been having a really solid season up to this point. I'm really excited to see how things move forward, but I also wonder, if we continue to go, if Marcos Lopez continues to play how he has played, which is good for us, which is what we want, right? Do we go ahead and put Beeson back into that rotational player role and say, let's continue to use Alanis because we have him right now, and then you'll be the one to go ahead and partner with Nathan in the future, right? Or does it make sense to keep having Beeson in the lineup at the end of the day? Hopefully not at right back, because I don't want to see him play out wide again like that. So that he can continue to get those reps. So if you end up in a playoff situation, then you know that you've got a defense that can really be solid, right? It's one of those situations where if I'm Matias, like I have to really evaluate that game in and game out and say what is better, what's best for my team. And right now it's just been to adapt and deploy the formation that makes most sense in terms of how you want to potentially mark out a player on the opposite side, right? So
I think
a good problem.
We saw a little bit of it, right? We saw Alanis hit the bench for the game that Nathan got a red card. So possibly he wants Lopez on the field every single game, and we're gonna see that 4 in the back system because that system suits Lopez more. I was telling everybody that was kind of like a Peruvian fan talking on Twitter, why isn't Marcos Lopez starting? Like, what's going on? Like, he played great for Peru. And I was letting everybody know that, hey, Matias Almeida's squad, he's really stubborn when the team's not losing. He doesn't like to change his lineup too much.
Exactly.
And what I was telling everybody is Marcos Lopez is one of the best 11 players on this team, no matter what. So it matters that he's out there every single time. But it's just it just was the formation that didn't suit him. So now I like the 4 in the back. I think that's the way to go in the future, because if Marcos Lopez is on the field, we have a great opportunity to score or even have him, cancel out one of their superstars. Because I mean,
Yeah.
he shut down Gabriel Jesus like it was like an MLS player. So
He
it was
did.
just
Yeah.
this Marcos Lopez guy that we've never seen. And if he keeps it up, I mean, there's no, maybe he goes to play for a Sevilla, who knows, right? So
yeah.
This is someone that has a great future, and I think they want to showcase that at least. I mean, put him out there to see if maybe, because the transfer window is going to open up pretty quickly. So
it is.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe we don't see Marcos Lopez next year. But I want to talk a little bit about some other guys too.
Okay, yeah.
In this kind of this 10-game window, what have you thought of Lucho Abacasis? I mean, this guy just completely changed my whole thought about him in the last 3 games. And it seems like he's getting some legs under him and getting up to fitness and getting his touch perfect. I mean, I want to say this, that Jeremy Ebobisse heading goal is the only goal we've had from a striker with their head since the Wondolowski Real Salt Lake, stunner. So that's how many games ago, right? So
it's
this
been a while.
was a problem that they saw they had, and we all love Cade Cowell, but he unfortunately can't head the ball just yet. And this is something that we needed. And Jeremy Ebobisse gets his first goal with his head, and that's like, from
Chris that Abacasis,
Chris Leach knew exactly what this team needed and injected that right into the squad, and we saw it. What have you thought of the resurgence of Lucho Abacasis, and is that going to work well with Jeremy Ebobisse?
Yeah, that's a great question. And speaking of that sequence, probably by far one of my favorite sequences from the season from the Quakes, the through ball that started it all off from midfield was just absolutely
I think it was Rometty. I want to say it was Rometty. Yeah, that was a nice through ball.
It was amazing. And then you get to that, and you get to the goal, like just beautiful stuff. Abacasis has really been one of those players. So I sit in section 127. So shout out to the crew on game days when we play at home, and so I typically have him right in front of me when matches start. And so I do watch a lot of him when he does play, either as a sub or starting, because I've always been curious of who is going to take over in that position, right? We've seen Paul Marie be there for a while. Tommy Thompson has been hurt, so he hasn't been able to go ahead and be in that role, as he has previously. And I would even argue that like Tommy Thompson has teams that he plays really well against, and a lot of teams that he plays pretty poor against at times, right? And so when Abacasis got signed on, we were just like, hey, this is going to be somebody that can probably really cement their role, be a solid rotational player, and we just didn't see that for a while. But recently, I agree with you. It seems like he has his legs underneath him. It seems like he's starting to click with the rest of the squad. I don't know if it was like the hair change or what, but there's a significant difference in how he's been injecting himself into matches at the end of the day, right?
He got a hairline back, and he got his skills back.
and then we're good to go, right? So he went KO can in this situation, not quite Super Saiyan, but he's getting there, right? And so watching him play, I will say I have frustrations in terms of positioning, but I think sometimes the positioning is a lack of like that fitness or just ability to just get up to speed against the opposition that we face. In the West, teams are really quick on the wings.
Yeah,
they are blazing fast, and teams in the East Coast like Orlando are also the same, and so that gives problems, sometimes for our guys that back there on the back line. And so with Abacasis, I think one of the interesting things though is that he's been figuring out a way to kind of counterbalance that.
Yeah.
And saying, let me get into better positioning, and then also when I have an opportunity to go ahead and move forward, let me be effective with my opportunities.
That's
too,
a big one,
right? Yeah. And I think that thought process is starting to click for him now in terms of how he can be more effective. On that side for the longest time, we saw a lot of, Christian Espinoza having to come back to the ball, receiving the ball, and then going ahead and push forward, decide if he wants to go to the touchline or if he wants to go ahead and cut inside. And then largely we stopped seeing that. And so, that changes the entire play of how, your wing backs overlap and also connect with your wingers up front. And I just think that the chemistry wasn't there. The understanding wasn't there, but now things are clicking, and Abacasis is like, okay, now I'm starting to find my flow.
Yeah.
Not having not having one of our overpaid players in the lineup, Carlos Fierro, I think
Yeah.
helps
Yeah.
that a bit too as well. I've just have not been a fan of Carlos Fierro out there on the wings. I know people love the fact that he would go ahead and cross the ball in, but I just found it to be, I don't want to say one dimensional, because there are some things about Fierro that I do enjoy, but there's a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah, of course.
And so I've been saying since the beginning of the season, if you have Fierro in lineup, there's a defensive liability which doesn't allow that fullback to really get forward and do any overlaps or really think about how I'm going to go ahead and push the ball forward, because they're having to defend so much. And so by the time that they do get the opportunity to do so, they're just like, completely tired and just now I got to make sure and do what I'm paid to do in this position.
Yeah.
So I think when, getting rid of Fierro, having other people in front of you. In this case, it was beautiful to see this kind of forward setup that we had in this last match against the Galaxy. I think it just really benefited Abel. I think the last string of games has benefited him in that sense. Yeah. And so as a rotational player in that role, I am all for it going forward at this point. Yeah.
And at the start of this season, I did have Abacasi's penciled in as the starter and Marcos Lopez on the other side. So it is nice finally seeing the fruits come to fruition, right? Or the fruits of labor coming to fruition. And looking back, I mean, my biggest gripe with Lucho Abacasi's was his crossing was always over Cade Cowell or always over Chris Wondolowski. And maybe bringing in a guy like Jeremy Ebobisse that is really good in the air. I hate to really point that at him, because he's not an Alan Gordon, because he can do the same with his feet, but I totally agree. Just really good in the air, right? And has that second ability, or like we saw a diving header to get a goal finally past Bond, right? Like what, like Jeremy Ebobisse could have had 3 goals this game, but if it wasn't for the greatness of Jonathan Bond, right, he would have possibly had it already. But he just had a super class, diving header that put him right back into the U.S. Men's national team kind of talking, pool. And I think that if Lucho Abacasi's can, keep this role up or keep what he's doing, my whole problem with it was that he wasn't connecting in the final third. And if he can now, the defensive side for me, because I always do these graphics where I see how many tackles they have within, the games.
Yeah.
Lucho Abacasi's, even though he was a sub, was always up there in tackles. And I was like, like he must be really good at defending, at least on the defensive side, but on the offensive side, he was a liability, because there was people like Tommy Thompson and Paul Marie starting before him. So if he can finally get those crosses down to a striker that can, head the ball in with greatness, then we might see a lot more assists come from Lucho Abacasi's. And speaking a little bit about him, he actually was on the team of the week this week. So
he was, exactly.
So it's like, wow, like this guy who, was at the start of the season, probably a third stringer, is a team of the week player now. So it's definitely a nice thing to finally see come. I know Lucho Abacasi's is, he's a great player, but he's always going to be linked to the guy that was here before, and Nick Lima.
Most definitely.
And Nick Lima wasn't starting for quite a while. So it was like, man, like we may have fleeced Austin. I mean, if they gave us that much money for a non-starter and a right back for that matter. Yeah, that was a great deal of business by Jesse Fiorinelli. Let me just give this quick tidbit on Jeremy Ebobisse with the Portland Timbers. Since the Portland Timbers have traded him away, they've actually had 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. So a lot of people are clamoring right now, because Jeremy Ebobisse also made team of the week. Look at that team of the week roster. Wouldn't it be nice if Portland had one of those players? So I don't know. Are we seeing, seller's regret already from Portland? Because Jeremy Ebobisse is already coming to the player that we know he can be, or is just like a marriage, made in heaven. I mean, the Quakes were great at crossing the ball, but nobody could head a ball in, and we brought in the perfect guy. Dom, wanting to see your thoughts on Jeremy Ebobisse. How's it?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll just read out these stats. 5 total shots, 24 accurate passes, 86% pass success, and 1 chance created from your number 9.
Yeah,
that's what this system needs. We talked so much this season about Matias finding the proper guy to sit up front, and the archetype really was Polito at the end of the day, and how he
Yeah.
plays, his positioning, the way that he passes, the way he injects himself to really help out that midfield and get them forward, so that he can then have an opportunity to go ahead and get to goal. And I think that's, it's not even a matter of think. I see that Iboba embodies those traits too as
Yeah.
well. The first time that he came in, the thing that I started to really enjoy was his positioning when he's off the ball.
Yeah.
I think off the ball movement is by far one of the most important skills for someone who's in that position. And Chris Wondolowski is probably one of the better examples. That's why
Yeah.
he's been called like a poacher for so many years.
Of course.
Because he's just been right place, right time. But a lot of that has to do with his movement off the
Yeah.
ball, right? And so we lack that a lot from
Yeah.
our forwards when Wando wasn't in. And so, I've been that guy who said last season where the goal is going to come from, and then this season where the goal is going to come from, right?
Yeah.
Every time Wando was on that brink of retirement, I was always just like, please no, because we don't have anyone to fill that space for those goals. And so with Ibobasi,
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like we do. And so, if a guy can inject himself into play where he can start linking up passes with our midfielders, which we really started to see, Jackson Ewell realize that playing underneath him is pretty good for his game, where we can see Chofis start to have confidence in someone else to play 1-2s off of,
Right.
or look for someone to go ahead and pass the ball to when he does get to the box. It becomes a situation where you're naturally just going to go ahead and increase the amount of opportunities that you have in a match to score goals.
Yeah.
And that's where you get, 5 shots from your number 9. That's where you have an expected goal of 1.1. That's when you start getting into those numbers that folks are starting to fall in love with, that go ahead and dictate, okay, what makes this position successful?
Right.
What are the things that we're looking for from this type of player? To really make an impact in this system. And I think Ibobasi has those skills. In the air, he can do it. We know he can do it on the ground. We're really just waiting for him to get more chemistry and see who he starts to link up with Chofis or Jackson Ewell.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to really just fuel the fire of this club going forward as we start to make a playoff push at the end of the day.
Yeah. And going back to your comment about where the goals were going to come from, I remember we were talking about that at the beginning of the season, and kind of looking at it now, Chofis has been spectacular. I mean, having his best season of the year. But that was kind of like yes, Chofis is better than Vaco, but the same goal production is coming almost from the same position at the time. But the goals that the striker's positioning is, or the position is missing, is actually coming from, the goals are coming from the center backs. I mean, they're kind of stepping it up on set pieces, and we're getting a lot of goals, and we're also getting a lot of goals from own goal, right? That's 2 goals now from own goal. So, so the goals are coming in different ways, and this Quakes team is firing on all cylinders, and the goals are just gonna go in, right? I mean,
about Chofis, I would love to say something about Chofis in that sense too as well, in regards to own goal situation. Own goals are created from mistakes from the opposing team when you apply pressure, right? And so I love seeing own goals, because then it means that the Quakes are applying that pressure that they need to when they get near the box. And I felt like that was something that we just did not do enough of to really take advantage of those opportunities at the end of the day, right? Like, how many instances have teams come into our own house where we've been on the road and we've created a goal for them? Reminiscent to the one that we did in this past matchup, right? Like that goal in that corner was really our own chaos. At the end of the day, right? And so, with Chofis, though, he's someone who I'm starting to enjoy watching, because I feel like he's been putting in the work recently.
Yeah, definitely.
He's been stepping it up. A lot of people talking about his fitness. Clearly wasn't finishing matches because he wasn't fit at the time. And then to just be really lazy in terms of like ball watching or not making runs when he should have made runs. I have a list of things that I could say I dislike about Chofis, right? But the things that I do like about Chofis, the potential that I see there, why people were so excited, I understand it now too as well. Right. So he's definitely won me over in terms of being more forgiving of his faults. And really just excited for what he can do for us and what this team will look like once he really starts to get accustomed to the MLS. I mean, this is still his first season in the league, right? And so it's going to take some time to really get acclimated. We saw that with the yellow cards that he used to get. I can't remember the last time he got a yellow card.
Right. He likes getting them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But that was because the fouls that he's used to committing, in the previous league weren't yellow cards. And then in this league, they are. Right. So it changes your whole mindset of, when you can step in, when you can't, when you can make a move, when you can't. Like, it's a psychological factor that I think that he just had to just get accustomed to and attuned to, and I am enjoying the evolution over the season. But with Chofis, the thing is that everybody looks at his position as one that should be a facilitator of goals, right? And so when we think about him scoring as many goals as he's had on the season, but not following that up with assists, the problem there is that a lot of his assists were pretty much canceled out by just poor forward play. So I'm hoping this is what I really hope is that we really get to see the true impact of Chofis by having someone like a Bobasi, which is going to make more opportunities for Cade, which is going to make more opportunities for Espinoza out on the wings, and that Chofis can go ahead and get back slotted into that number 10 where where he should be ultimately. And then get to a point where he starts delivering more goals, in the form of assists to our strikers, and they get that service from him that really rounds him out as that number 10. And I know a lot of people are just like, well, what does that mean for the midfield at the end of the day? Because I think I'm one of those people who really enjoyed the midfield in this last match.
Yeah.
Whereas I know a ton of people are not fans of that midfield. But I really think that in this game in particular, the benefits of having Judson and Remedi sit there in front of your back line were very apparent.
Right.
Because it not only provided you with enough cover for people getting forward and for you to go ahead and high press. It also, that's really what it is. It provided you with enough cover for your wingbacks to get forward and for you to go ahead and employ that high press. And so when you're not the one getting pressed, you don't have to worry about your team being poor playing out of that press, which the Quakes are really poor. Remedi is the best player playing out of the press for the Quakes. And you don't want that to be the case because Remedi is not your 10. Remedi is not one of your wingers. Remedi is not one of your forwards, right? And I like Ibobasi playing out of the press too as well, which is a benefit. So now you can go ahead and apply the press to folks. Now you're the one applying that pressure. You're the one causing the own goals. You're the one that has more passing lanes available to you to go ahead and inflict damage. And so I think that only happens with that defensive setup, and the creativity is going to come from guys like Chofis when you played out there on the wing.
Right.
You can slot him into the 10 and remove, Jackson Yule if you need to. You know what I'm saying? Slot him somewhere else where he's allowed to just go ahead and ping the ball around as need be. But this really just all goes back to me just wanting two forwards at the end of the day, but it's not gonna happen.
But what I want to see out of this lineup is I do want to see Espinoza back in, but I want to see the same thing. I think Shea Salinas has been a great starter, but I think if we can see Espinoza and Chofis on the wings in at least one game and Jackson at the 10 and Ibobasi at top, I want to see this creativity and see what they can do. And that is probably our most creative side and most dangerous side, because everybody there can do something to create a goal or open up some space. So at the end of the day, that's what I want to see. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think the only downfall of that setup is Jackson Yule of the 10. Jackson hasn't been confident. He hasn't particularly played very well in that 10 role. And so it is a bit of a liability there. But I like it right now where we are still experimenting and tinkering with this squad, where no one has really cemented themselves in that front line. Right. Because maybe he can get some of that confidence back. Maybe he'll flip his head and stop the back passes that everybody hates right now. Maybe he will learn to start playing better out of pressure. Maybe he will ping the ball around more and really get over that back line. The thing, get behind that back line, the things that we enjoyed about his game at the end of the day. And maybe he can further develop that relationship with Ibobasi, where it becomes something that is impactful for the squad. And we can go ahead and say, cool, let's throw Espinoza and Cade back out there. Let's have Lopez and Espinoza out there. And that works for us. But I think that the thing that people really have to do is just not be married to Cade being a starter. And then also not be married to the fact that you need to have a offensive starting 11 to score goals, because in this situation, it was the defensive lineup that allowed us to apply pressure and score goals at the end of the day.
That's true. That's definitely true. Marcos Lopez and Abacassis had great games. I mean, and like you said, they had the opportunity to finally move forward because they didn't have to worry about anything else.
The cover is there.
Yeah, and speaking a little bit about Chofis Lopez, the Chivas, because he's still on a loan, right? Chivas are not doing well. And I was looking at Chivas Twitter, and a lot of the people were clamoring to bring this guy back. So
really interesting. Okay.
I don't know what the deal is, if he can choose to come back. But all I know is with a lot of these all-star players going down, I mean, Emmanuel Reynoso just came out that he's not going to be participating, and that opens up another slot. So I think Buchanan and Reynoso's spots are still available.
And no Chicharito or Vela, correct?
Their spots were filled by Pizarro and I think Bello from Atlanta United.
Got you.
But there's 2 more slots open, and I think if Chofis Lopez, if I have to choose a Quake to go to the All-Star game, another one,
especially because it's LA as well,
right? I think I'm gonna choose Chofis Lopez, and if this trajectory keeps on going, if Chofis Lopez balls out, and let's say he gets called up to the All-Star game and he balls out, I don't know if Chivas is going to be knocking on our door and be like, hey man, thanks for the confidence you gave our guy, but we're going to need him back, because Chivas just lost 3-0. And with the Liga MX type of scheduling, there's only 12 games in each season. So if you go down 3-0, you are thinking, wow, like we got to change this quick. And I know there's one team that would love to have our coach back too, and would gladly pay a transfer fee. So we, as Quakes fans, I hate to say it, do have to keep an eye on Chivas, because they might want Chofis Lopez back. But I think I read somewhere that it's up to Chofis if he wants to go back. And I can tell Chofis Lopez always plays better when he plays against Mexican national team talent. He tries to ball out when he's up against those type of players, because he knows there's eyeballs on those games. He knows the Mexican media is going to be looking at that game, because I think ultimately Chofis Lopez does want to play for that El Tri. I think he does.
Yeah.
And he deservedly, I think, should have been on the Gold Cup if this form came earlier, because Pizarro was on the Gold Cup and he hasn't scored in a year. So it's like, maybe, they should be looking at this Chofis Lopez guy that is playing the best career or year of his career. So even the years in Chivas wasn't this good. A lot of the Chivas fans are saying it's because Liga MX is better quality than MLS. So personally, I want to see Chofis Lopez ball out in the All-Star game if they call him up, because that's not the case. I think Matias Almeida is getting the best out of Chofis Lopez, and it's obvious.
Yeah, most definitely. And he's moving him around too as well, right? He played on wings in this match, even though he is at 10. And so he's also played there before, and if I'm not mistaken, or Matias. And so that's why he was comfortable doing that. And like I said, if he's getting his fitness back up, which we've seen the Instagram post of him in the gym, getting that extra time,
he's looking skinny, right? Like what?
Then it's exactly
almost been there, right?
Hey, bro, but it's not a bad thing.
Like the spin, the spin room selfie, we've all been there, dog. Yeah, come on, dude. Like, hey, look at me, I'm working overtime,
Exactly. But, it's fine. So like I'm with that, I see the guy putting in the work, and you make some really valid points in terms of like the situation with Chivas. I'm not super knowledgeable in that regard. I'm not a fan of that league in terms of me ever watching, and it's no disrespect at all. It's just like, like I'm an Arsenal fan. Yeah, I am a Gooner. And then my other free time, I'm watching the French league. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the fan base of his parent club are starting to talk about, hey, maybe we should go ahead and recall him.
Yeah,
I think that's a positive at the end of the day in any situation, in terms of just like, I mean, in terms of the quality that player is putting out there for eyes who have no, buy-in to the Quakes. Like those are people who just like, they do not have that bias, right? And so that's very telling of how he's improved over the season.
there's two camps of this whole thing. And you know, I hate to say it, but me and my family, we watch a lot of Liga MX because it's the only thing they play on free television back in the Bay Area. So all y'all MLS snobs and Euro snobs, you gotta get some free games for us poor Latin people, you know, in the Bay Area. Because at the end of the day, we're not Mexican, but we love Liga MX because it's always on, right? So
it's always on. Yeah, it is.
Right. And that's, we've talked about that before. I mean, CSN Bay Area is like one of the worst plagues the Quakes could ever have. I mean, we can go into that. And I actually didn't watch this game because of ESPN's blackout rules, right? So I'm in Japan and I have ESPN Plus, which I can't actually buy in Japan. I gotta buy a VPN to buy ESPN Plus. And it doesn't even work with ESPN
with regular
Plus.
ESPN.
So
you gotta have a cable subscription.
I was so frustrated. I was like, I'm not gonna pay a cable subscription to watch one game. Come on, like what's going on here? And
we need better streams.
Right. At the end of the day, that's what it is. But there's two camps. Back to the Chofis Lopez thing. There's two camps really. There's he's playing, he's balling out because MLS is not good. And then there's another camp that's like, oh wow, this guy's actually, you know, el gordito, you know, the chubby one is actually skinny. Like he does want to do something with his life. And you know, following these players, it does seem that I mean, in some pictures I've seen, it does seem like he deals with some sort of anxiety when it comes to seeing fans. And I think that has to do with being so famous, so young. And maybe he's finally maturing in a sense where he feels safe and he's just in a good system where the environment is a lot safer than the environment in Mexico, and the media is just not on your back and all that. And maybe he stays because of that, but don't be surprised if Chris Leach, you know, runs a fast transfer in front of all of us. I mean, for Chofis Lopez, a permanent transfer, or Chivas calling him back, right?
Calling him back, right. It's been the reality since we've gotten him on loan at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so it's also one of those things too, in terms of like, when I think about the story behind Chofis when he did come into the club before he was a DP as well. When I just think about the story around him, you know, people were talking about his the ongoing investigation for whatever, the weight situation, like all these reasons why him coming to play underneath Matias would be good for him having that environment that is going to motivate him and push him forward. You know, I can't imagine that the Quakes didn't feel like those factors would put them in a position to be able to rely on him for like a playoff run, right? And so I would hope the business done doesn't allow him to be, you know, called back until the end of the season. I would hope that that's the case. Because what is the point of taking the gamble and paying somebody this much money if they're not going to be there for you in that long haul, right? And we know this is a guy that they've wanted to bring in for a while now. You know, this has been like one of the, you know, top 5 people on his list according to Matias that he's meant to bring in, but the money just wasn't right in terms of doing so. So you're taking advantage of the situation and it's starting to pay off, you know, with the production that he's having. But there's still people better than him in the league that are showing that from his position that you can do better. So, you know, I hear, you know, I understand the situation with like having a player on loan and wanting them to come back because they're doing great. Like I'm a gooner, so I've seen it all at this point in time. But at the end of the day, I think that the Quakes wouldn't have struck up a deal if it didn't allow him to be here for the full season. So they might just have to sit there and just, you know, enjoy the show.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping happens.
I'm hoping Chris Leach pulls a quick one, just like the Jeremy Bobasi. And he's like, I'm still on an intern. All right, let me just ball out right now. Let me just
do it.
Go buy Chofis on a permanent. And then maybe we see a Lukaku situation where he goes back to his, you know, boyhood club and then, you know, makes a dream come true. But for now, hopefully Chofis Lopez is here to stay and hopefully he gets called up to that All-Star game. And I know that news maybe come out tomorrow. That would be cool. Yeah. I mean, that would be seeing cool. Some more Quakes in the All-Star game I mean, I'm excited. Are you excited for it? I mean, I'm excited for that kind of skills challenge.
The whole way that it's being set up this year is definitely like, I mean, I try and watch the All-Star game every year. There's been some years where I've just kind of like, bleh. But this one is really interesting because it is against, you know, Liga MX, because it does have some of that additional flair to it with having, you know, players from a different league that I think is really cool. At the end of the day, I think it's a really cool concept, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against that Mexican All-Star team from Liga MX. And I think that, and really what makes it more of a spectacle is it is in LA proper, which is just like that city that has the culture where you have a ton of fans who are from Liga MX. You have that fan base that is there for LAFC too as well. And now you're putting them up against each other. You're just like, so are you gonna go and support MLS and LAFC? Or are you gonna go and support your club from back home at the end of the day, right? Like that type of energy in one space while all this is going on, that's wonderful. I love it. I like that's what I'm really gonna watch for.
I'm honestly gonna be excited if maybe I see some like LAFC supporters that like cut their jersey in half and then have like a Cruz Azul kind of half jersey. Yeah, like the Peyton Manning ones, like that you saw in the NFL. Yeah. That'd be hilarious. I mean, if you saw, because I know Javicita Rodriguez is like he's a Uruguayan guy, but he's like one of the best players for Cruz Azul, and I bet there's Cruz Azul fans that are LAFC fans. So I would love to see what they choose, right? Like that's like a whole little
people are probably gonna do the exactly. I can definitely see a lot of half scarves, being sold and bought out there too, as well as a result of that. I think half scarves are really cool, but I can definitely see that.
I'm gonna be looking for this MLS All-Star kit at Ross. This is the first time where I actually want to buy one, right? So I'm gonna be looking for it at Ross.
Why is it always Ross or Marshalls, man?
It's always All-Star kits are always there, right? Like that's the one. I know all of us Quake fans, me included, the one back here, have bought one at Ross for $10, So
most definitely. Yeah, you're not a Quakes fan unless you've seen a Quakes kit at Ross or Marshalls. That's just how it works, man. That's just how it works. Every year on the subreddit, somebody pops up with a thread and they're just like, yo, they got freaking all these sizes,
right?
And it's like dirt cheap, like this location, like go look. And then everybody's just like, oh, it's the yearly rush to go to Ross or Marshalls and go find the Quakes kit so I can go buy one. It's like a part of our culture at this point,
right,
which is pretty dope.
Yeah, but I mean, Kate Cowell's on the team, and maybe actually another person that may be deservedly of this call up to the All-Star game is probably Wondolowski. I mean, if Wando doesn't get a call up, or a part of me is gonna hurt, right? I mean, after all these guys are injured, I think
Don Garber did it last year though for him, right?
When he did. Okay.
So it could or it could not happen in that sense, right?
Yeah,
I think if Espinoza was more consistent throughout the season, then he definitely would have been on that list too as well, right?
I think maybe Espinoza is already kind of on that list, but he's injured, right? He's at least has a knock, so maybe they didn't just call him up because then they'll have to take him off, right?
Yeah.
So, but kind of cool. I mean, I know this happens a lot for basketball where it's like you still get to put the All-Star on your kind of like resume, but you didn't really play, and everybody more All-Stars. So I guess it's good for the league, but it's all fun. But kind of talking 2 weeks later, I know we got Colorado Rapids coming up.
Yes,
they are a very strong team this year and a brand new look team. I mean, team that purchased Mark Anthony K for $1 million, right? Like, what is this, a Kroenke team? Like, what's going on? Well, the funniest thing is speaking about Kroenke team, I was applying to MLS teams as like a graphic designer to see if anything sticks, right? And I looked at the Rapids, and they're you know what their starting salary was for a graphic designer? $16 to $21 an hour.
No, I'm not talking about that at all.
Oh my god!
Like let's be real.
Of college and 2 years of actual experience to get paid.
Yes.
In and out wage, like what, dude? What's going on?
There's always been a respect that I have for the front office folks who work within the sport, because I know a lot of them do it because it's their passion versus how much it actually pays. I would love to see this league get to a point where roles like that, because look at our media team, right? They're amazing.
Awesome.
I would love for this league to get to a place where roles like that are paid properly for the content that they produce, because like in the Quake situation, for example, right? I don't know how much they get paid.
Right.
But just speaking in terms of like league averages, right? Like I have friends who have been approached by teams in the league for other positions, physios and things of that nature. And so we've had conversations about like what they've been offered, and we've all just been like, there's no way, right?
Right.
So when I know people who are in the league who are doing this, I know it's because it's their passion.
Right.
Like this league has to get to a point where we start paying the front offices and their members for things like this, you know, what they deserve for the quality content, right? Because you understand this as a content creator too as well, right? Like you know how many hours go into making graphics, you know all the additional you know times you need to do an edit or something like this, and how short of time you have when you have to go ahead and produce that content if you want to do it consistently.
Yeah.
You know, we have probably the best media team in all of the league right now.
I agree.
And what they produce consistently year over year over year over year. And, you know, it's one of those things where you just know that they're very passionate about that at the end of the day. So that league as a whole, it has to get better, bro. It really does.
Yeah. And speaking
Sorry to go on that rant.
No,
go on that rant.
No
I just
problem.
want to see my folks paid proper for producing that.
No,
that
I agree.
Stuff
I completely agree. And if our media team wasn't the best in the league, you wouldn't see Instagrams pop up that are just glorifying the tweets made by our team. So there's literally just you know Instagrams about how good our tweets are, right? And they just repost the tweets, and that speaks a lot of volume. I mean, this team is just, I mean, of course they've won awards, but it's just we have to understand that we are so spoiled with the team with Paul, with Pedro and Jake and Audi on the front office side and everybody that we know. Make sure you reach out to them and let them know, because we do appreciate them, everything they do for us. And
can't forget Sam either.
Yeah, Sam
and is out here killing it.
And just to think about, we don't have a superstar, right? And these guys are all the superstars behind the scenes, because
keeping the team relevant even in the darkest times all the time. Like that's a thankless job. But to get to Colorado,
we can talk all day. I mean, I can talk all day, but
to get to Colorado, the thing that I've always found really interesting about Colorado is how they've made up their team at the end of the day, right? This is a team that Kellen Acosta got traded to, and everybody was sitting there kind of just like, well, that's it for his career, because now he's going to be playing for the Rapids.
Can you believe that? I know we were saying that.
People thought it was all over for him, right? It was a team that, you know, just doesn't get a lot of love at the end of the day because they're owned by Arsenal CEO, chairman, whatever you want to call him, and Kroenke at the end of the day. So it's kind of just like his like pet project, right? And it was his sons at one point in time who's now trying to, you know, fix Arsenal. But I digress. It's guys like Kellen Acosta on that team, which are just like very interesting yet key pieces. It's having people like Diego Rubio and Michael Barrios who are just like, you know, putting in consistent production week in and week out and causing problems for folks. It's up and coming folks like Jonathan Lewis, right? It's having a consistent defender like Drew Moore that's still on your squad, right? And Rosenberry, right? So like you have these names that you can take a look at this team and pick out and be like, oh, these guys have been consistent for a number of years.
Yeah.
And now they've just added in those other pieces to really just go ahead and gel. And they're sitting in third place overall now in the West. So it's one of those situations where I see this as a team that has it's had a bit of a vision and it's starting to come to fruition, you know, as time has gone on. Because remember, Colorado wasn't disastrous. They had been like, we had one really bad season. And then they were like in the running again, you know, being one of those top teams in the West, and kind of just like fell off towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Then they started to pick it back up and slowly have just been climbing to now they're just like in this you know, really consistent place in terms of like how they play week in and week out, which has just been really solid.
And going back to, they're actually sitting in fourth, but they are 1 point behind LA Galaxy. And
there we go.
And we helped out the Colorado fans actually, because we gave a loss to the Galaxy. So they were excited about that. But giving some sort of insight on this Colorado team, if you guys are baseball fans, this Colorado team this year is a lot like the Giants. This Giants team has had consistent starters, have always been able to win. I mean, not win games, but definitely been consistent players. And then they bring in a guy like Chris Bryant. They bring in a guy like Mark Anthony Kaye to really put them, you know, because they feel like this year could be the year where they can truly make a title run. And that's kind of like the parallel.
Gabe's done a really good job, man.
Yeah. And to bring in the Bay Area
Yeah,
kind of
right.
sports, right? It's you're almost seeing it in MLS type of deal. They were like, okay, this is a buy now situation, and this is a
Yeah.
hot team. This is a streaking team. So we'll see what team shows up on 2 weeks from now at PayPal Park.
Yeah, I think when you bring in those extra pieces, when you really when you really have a consistent base, and then you get everyone else to just gel around that base,
Right.
that is where you can see that success no matter who's in there, right? Like Seattle does the same thing too as well, right? They have their base pieces. When those injuries occur, the folks come and slot in,
Yeah.
and then you still end up winning games with a bunch of kids on your squad for the most part, because Rui Diaz is still getting service in the way that he needs to, right?
Right.
You still have a Roldan that's running around and providing, wreaking havoc on teams, right? That base is there. And very similar to the Giants, like, yeah, my boys have had a consistent base all season long. We've had a number of injuries, but Gabe has been able to find the right guys to plug and play and put into those roles and keep things gelled, where he may be honestly manager of the season, and the Giants honestly might end up in first place and make a World Series run, which is I'm happy about. But yeah, like you're spot on with that. It's one of those teams that I said in the beginning of the season that people should watch out for in Colorado.
Wow.
It is one of those teams when I looked at the rest of the schedule for this month and then going into September, that I said that this is going to be that really challenging time to see what the Quakes are made of.
Right.
And I would say that with the firing of Fierinelli, we don't know if the conversation's been had with Matias and Chris Leach and Fisher yet.
So Alex Morgan, great reporter. He kind of reported on it that they had a brief conversation, and
there we go.
It wasn't something where Matias wanted to share what was said. So I don't know if they truly had a big long conversation, or it was more like kind of a passerby. Hey, Matias, maybe do you want a GM spot or something like that? But I don't think it was a full on conversation that Matias, he kind of brushed it under the rug and kind of was like, all right, let's move on.
There we go. Exactly. And we haven't had that talk yet, right?
Yeah, right.
Where we do know that Matias and Chris are working together to put together that data in terms of saying this is how we want to go ahead and move forward, right? We got the firm coming in and the whole GM search and all that jazz, whatever. But I think the real focus right now is to look at what Chris is doing in the moves that he's made.
Yeah.
And look at Matias and how he's been able to go ahead and say, now that I have some reinforcements, we can start to do things differently with the squad. We don't have to bring in a Benji. We don't have to play our youths that's like, really aren't ready at this point in time yet. We have our injuries as well. That's kind of hampering some of those plans and that rotation a bit. But I'll make it work, by adapting, my system and style of play to get it there. Colorado is just a step in front of us in terms of having already gone through that and now have found that consistency that they can go ahead and push forward and get more W's, as opposed to the ties and the losses. Right. So I think it's going to be a really good test for us to see where we are. I hope that the bug that's been biting our team in terms of injuries is, dealt with by that time too as well, because I would really like to see a healthy Quake squad with all of our players available. I would really like Matias to be able to go ahead and make a selection against this Colorado team.
Yeah.
And really give them a fight, because I honestly feel like this is one of those teams that we need to measure up against and see what the potential for playoffs is going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. This is a potential playoff matchup. I mean,
exactly.
Looking at this team, I just want to say, keep an eye out for Cole Bassett and someone that we all know, right? Someone that we all know, Barrios. I mean, Barrios has been a thorn in our side since his FC Dallas days. He's
exactly.
Quick. He's creative. He may be a problem for our center backs, and that's something to keep an eye on. I would say he's like their Chofis Lopez, if that's a good comparison.
That's fair.
More consistent Chofis Lopez, and definitely more prolific in MLS Chofis Lopez. That's for sure, because he deserves all the space and all the guarding that he gets, and definitely is a very creative player, full of pace. Anybody that you think we should keep an eye on?
For me, it's really just a matter of not necessarily like a particular player as much as it is just how they play well together. And just watching Colorado games, they're not really a team that gets mentally shaken. It really just feels like when you watch them that they have this level of comfort where they can dig themselves out of a hole if they need to. And so I think the Quakes are going to have to play a very similar game of just being structurally sound and play to what makes them great, which we saw in this last match is get in a situation where you can control the game, and don't allow the opposing team to just really have those too many opportunities to strike back in a sense. And so, I think this, like I said, I think this is going to be a really good match to see how we can potentially line up against squads in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I agree. I feel like this is going to be a nice little 2-week break, finally going in hot.
Yeah.
So we're going to see, we're going to watch the All-Star game, and then we got more games to come up, and we got the half of the season left. I mean, I know, it's kind of crazy. I have tons of soccer to watch out here in Japan now because the EPL and the Spanish league, they're all at normal times now.
Yeah. So for you.
For me. Right. So now I can actually drink a beer and watch a game,
up at 4:30 in the morning, man.
I know.
Yeah, but, you can start your game with a beer in hand. I'm at the bar at 4:30 talking about, can I get an orange juice? And then waiting until we can actually start drinking.
Right.
Before we can even order anything.
Tom, do you ever go to the Arsenal bar up in SF? I forgot the name of it.
We're at Maggie's.
Maggie's, that's right. I went one time. I went because I went for a Liverpool Arsenal game because I'm a Liverpool fan, and that was one of the best experiences I've ever had because Liverpool won a Petunia screamer, and it was just like the funnest time. So if you guys ever get a chance, go out to the bar, Maggie's with Dom, because it's gonna be a blast. All right. So
the Bay Area Gooners team is really consistent. They've been consistent over the years. From everyone that I've met that's a part of the Bay Area Gooners. I know some of them are also Quakes fans too as well. Everyone has always been super welcoming. So if it is a matter of you wanting to go watch your opposing team, I've never heard of anyone ever having an issue. And it's downtown, so sometimes it's a trek to go ahead and get down there. But it's always a really welcome group. So far this season, I haven't been able to get to a match, but hopefully my schedule matches up and I can do it very soon.
Yeah, and that wraps it up for us, guys. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us for about an hour and 20 minutes. But if you guys want to listen to Dom speak for another 2 hours, definitely go check out Quakes After 90.
Yes,
because it's a great podcast. I've been a fan of it for many years. And Dom, how can you find you? I know everybody here knows you, but how can you find yourself on Twitter and Instagram?
Yeah, most definitely. So on Twitter, you can find me at LOVSICFRS Lovesick Fresh. It's an ode to one of my favorite producers of all time, Nujabes. Since you're out there in Japan, I gotta bring that up. June Seba will live on forever in my heart and in my tweets. And then of course, Quakes After 90 on Instagram, Quakes After 90 on Twitter too as well. Posting content, trying to be a bit more consistent on the Instagram when I'm at games, but sometimes I'm just getting into it a little bit too much.
Nah, it's all good. It's all
good. Enjoying myself.
Enjoy your time, man.
Yeah. but I really want to go ahead and say too as well is I appreciate when I come onto the show and you guys allow that platform to go ahead and say plug your own show, right?
Of course.
There's a huge respect that I have for Tectonic Takes. Because out of the gate, y'all have always been just very real. You guys have been very true to just saying we want to produce content. We want to go ahead and build a community and that fan base where we can go ahead and say, hey, look, we're doing our job in terms of just giving you more Quakes content, right? And so as someone who's a moderator on the subreddit where a lot of these podcasts have been birthed from, and people writing articles and saying, hey, let me go ahead and get behind the mic. How hard is it to go ahead and do so? I appreciate the fact that y'all have stepped up and really come into the fold in your first year and produce as much content as you have, because I remember when I was sitting in my college dorm as a Quakes fan coming to games, and there just being little to no reporting whatsoever. And there are other teams that also go ahead and report on the Quakes too as well, but there's no problem with having more content. We had Robert Jonas, who I will always shout out to, Elliot Allman, and a couple other folks who, they were on the beat, but it was only occasional pop shots here and there. You know what I'm saying? Ted Ramey didn't have a radio show to go ahead and do something on the weekly soccer hour. So we were very limited in the amount of content that we have. So for anyone who's listening to Tectonic Quakes, anyone who comes and listens over to Quakes After 90, just understand that all this is very grassroots, that people are really putting their time and effort into producing this quality content for you, because they want you to be more informed about the Quakes. They want you to be more bought into this team. They want you to be a fan, to go to games, to watch the games, to have that sense of connection, so that you can have something that you're passionate about as it comes to this team. And you look at that crest and you watch Wando and Cade and all these new guys coming up, right? So, I will forever be a proponent in terms of trying to push forward, someone who's just getting into the game, someone who's been established and wanting to get the word out for content that surrounds this team, and really the MLS as a whole too as well. So thank you guys for the work that you do. I really appreciate it as a fan myself. And so thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you so much for that, because that means a lot to me and us here at Tectonic Takes. And any of you guys that are listening and you want to make that Quakes content and you want to go ahead and write that article or make that graphic, I will gladly display your art or whatever you do that covers this team, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And I learned that from you, Dom, and your Reddit and everything that you've done. So I want to keep giving that to all the younger fans, right? The younger generation that wants to that platform to possibly, make this into a career and make this into their life. And that's what we're here for at the end of the day, because it's always for the newer generations, right? And you paved the way for us, and now I'm going to extend my arm as well to pave the way for new Quakes fans and new podcasts, because at the end of the day, we're not the biggest team. I'm gonna tell you the truth, right?
Yeah, we're in a big market, but we're a small team, right? That's how it is at the end of the day.
Effort that we all put in all brings in the collective. So Quakes Epicenter, Quakes After 90, us included, the new Aftershock, and hopefully more to come. And the soccer hour with Ted Ramey, how am I forgetting that? And all these shows and all builds the content for all of us. And me as a creator, I love this content, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and extend my arm. If you guys want to display any of your stuff, just let me know. I'll gladly display all of it.
It's wonderful, man. Yeah.
And that's it from us. And thank you, Dom, so much for the time.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
And you have a great day. And we'll say go Quakes.
Go Quakes.